Every death leaves questions, but some deaths leave entire rooms full of them. A billionaire couple found lifeless inside their Toronto mansion. A disgraced financier dead in a federal jail before trial. A programmer facing prison. A journalist killed in a violent crash. A worker driving toward a meeting with documents that were never found. Each case is different. Each life carried its own contradictions. Yet all of them share one unsettling feature. At the moment they died, people believed they were close to exposing something powerful. This is not a story about proving every suspicion true. It is about why these suspicions survive. Because when a person challenges a major industry, a government agency, a financial network, or a public narrative, their death is never seen as ordinary. The official explanation may be clear, but the public often hears another question beneath it. What did they know? That question can be dangerous. It can lead to exaggeration, rumor, and false certainty, but it can also point to a real problem. Trust has been damaged. People have watched institutions hide mistakes, protect reputations, and release only partial truths. So when a witness dies, when records disappear, when evidence remains sealed, imagination fills the silence. This journey moves through 10 lives and the secrets people believe followed them to the grave. Some stories are documented, some remain disputed. All reveal something about modern power. Not just how it works, but how deeply people fear it when no one is watching. The first scene is a mansion in Toronto, quiet in the middle of winter. Barry and Honey Sherman were among Canada's richest couples. Barry had built Apotex, a generic drug company that challenged the pricing power of major pharmaceutical firms. His business model was simple but disruptive. Sell cheaper medicine and compete aggressively. To patients, that meant access. To rivals, it meant pressure. On December 15, 2017, the Shermans were found dead in their home. At first, the case was discussed as a possible murder-suicide, but their family rejected that theory immediately. Later, police treated the deaths as a double homicide. That shift changed everything. The story was no longer only about a wealthy couple. It became a question about money, medicine, lawsuits, and who benefits when drug prices stay high. Barry Sherman had spent years in legal battles. He was not a quiet businessman. He fought competitors, challenged patents, and operated in an industry where billions of dollars could turn on a single court decision. No public evidence has proven that his business conflicts caused his death, but the timing and the brutality made people look closer. The case remains unsolved. And that is why it still holds attention. Because when a man who disrupted a powerful industry dies violently, the public does not only ask who entered the house, it asks who wanted him gone. Then came a jail cell in Manhattan. Jeffrey Epstein was awaiting trial on charges connected to sex trafficking and exploitation. His case involved wealth, influence, private islands, famous names, and a long history of unanswered questions. He was not just another defendant. He was a man many believed had access to damaging information about powerful people. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in federal custody. The official ruling was suicide. But almost immediately the public focused on the failures around him. Why was he not watched more closely? Why had his cellmate been moved? Why did security procedures fail? Why did camera issues appear at the worst possible time? Those questions turned his death into a cultural symbol. For victims, Epstein's death meant something painful. A trial would never fully unfold. Names, records, testimony, and accountability might remain incomplete. For the public, the case became proof of a fear already growing in the background, that justice works differently when powerful people are involved. It is important not to turn suspicion into fact, but it is equally important to understand why disbelief spread so quickly. Epstein died in one of the most secure systems in America, while carrying secrets that could have embarrassed some of the most influential people in the world. That combination was enough to make the official story feel unfinished. His death did not close the case. It opened a larger question. when the accused dies, who still escapes the light? John McAfee spent his final years acting like a man being chased by shadows. He was famous for creating antivirus software, but later became known for something stranger: public warnings about surveillance, government control, cryptocurrency, and hidden files he claimed could expose powerful people. Some dismissed him as unstable. Others believed he knew too much. In June 2021, McAfee was found dead in a Spanish prison cell shortly after a court approved his extradition to the United States. Authorities described it as suicide. But McAfee had spent years telling people that if he ever died that way, they should doubt it. That made his death impossible to separate from his own mythology. He had spoken often about a dead man's switch, a supposed system that would release secret information if he died. After his death, people waited for proof. Some expected files, others expected names. Nothing clear emerged. Still, the story captured a modern fear that in a digital world, secrets do not live in filing cabinets anymore. They live on servers, wallets, encrypted drives, and private networks. McAfee's life was chaotic, contradictory, and difficult to separate from performance. But his death held attention because he had written doubt into the script before it happened. Whether he truly possessed explosive information remains unclear. What is clear is this: he understood the power of making people believe that information existed. And in the age of surveillance, sometimes the rumor of a secret can be almost as powerful as the secret itself. Brandy Vaughn built her second life around warning people not to trust the first industry she had worked in. She had been employed in pharmaceuticals before becoming an outspoken critic of vaccine policy and drug company practices. To her supporters, she was a whistleblower. To her critics, she spread claims that medical experts strongly disputed. But she had one advantage that made people listen. She could say she had been inside the system. Vaughn founded Learn the Risk and built a large online following. She spoke about corporate influence, regulatory capture, and the fear that safety concerns were being minimized. In December 2020, she died at her home in California. The official explanation pointed to natural causes. Her supporters did not accept that easily. Before her death, Vaughn had publicly said she felt threatened. She had told people she was not suicidal. She had recorded warnings that if something happened to her, it should be investigated. Those statements became part of the story. The danger here is clear. Public health can be damaged when fear replaces evidence. But public trust is also damaged when people feel institutions dismiss concerns instead of answering them. Vaughn's death became powerful because it landed in the middle of that conflict. For some, she represented courage. For others, misinformation. For many, she represented a deeper anxiety about medicine becoming too corporate, too distant, and too difficult to question. Her story holds attention because it asks a sharp question. When trust in health authorities breaks down, who gets believed? The experts, the insiders, or the people who sound afraid? John Wheeler III had lived close to power for decades. He worked in government, defense policy, and consulting. He knew the language of agencies, contracts, military structures, and official secrecy. He was not an outsider guessing at how institutions worked. He had been inside them. Then, in December 2010, his body was found in a Delaware landfill. The final days of his life were strange. Surveillance footage showed him confused and disoriented. Friends and family struggled to understand what had happened. The public saw fragments: a missing man, unusual behavior, a body discovered far from where it should have been. Because Wheeler had worked around defense and government systems, speculation grew quickly. Some believed he may have uncovered information involving money, contracts, or official misconduct. Others saw a tragic personal collapse. The available record did not settle the matter in a way that satisfied everyone. What makes his case gripping is not just the mystery of death. It is the setting around it. Defense spending, intelligence work, and government contracting are worlds where most citizens see almost nothing. Billions move through paperwork. Decisions are classified. Mistakes can be buried under procedure. When someone connected to that world dies in such a disturbing way, the public instinctively looks for a hidden reason. Wheeler's death remains unresolved in the cultural imagination because it touches two fears at once: that powerful systems hide dangerous secrets, and that a person can fall out of those systems so completely that even his final path becomes impossible to understand. Aaron Swartz was not rich in the way billionaires are rich. His power was different. He understood information. As a programmer and activist, Swartz believed knowledge should be open, especially research funded by the public. He helped shape parts of the early internet and became one of the strongest voices against censorship, paywalls, and digital control. Then, he was charged with federal crimes after downloading a large number of academic articles through MIT's network. The potential punishment was severe. To his supporters, it felt wildly disproportionate. They saw a young idealist being crushed by a legal system that did not understand the difference between profit-driven theft and political protest. In January 2013, Swartz died by suicide at 26. His death shocked the technology world. It also turned him into a symbol of something larger: the fight over who owns knowledge. Later, when revelations about mass surveillance became public, many people looked back at Swartz and felt he had understood the direction of the internet earlier than most. He had warned that digital freedom could be quietly fenced in. Unlike other cases, the mystery here is not whether someone secretly killed him. The visible tragedy is powerful enough. A brilliant young man faced intense pressure from the government and lost hope. But his death still exposed a dangerous secret. Not a hidden file, not a private blacklist. A system can destroy a person without needing to hide its hand. Sometimes the machinery is already in plain sight. Gary Kildall belongs to the history of computers that many people never learned. Before the personal computer became part of everyday life, Kildall helped create operating systems that shaped the industry's early direction. He was brilliant, original, and present at a moment when the digital future was still open. But history remembers winners more easily than pioneers. Microsoft became a giant. Other names faded. Kildall became associated with one of technology's great what-if stories. What if the personal computer industry had followed a different path? In 1994, he died after suffering head injuries. The official account involved an incident at a bar, but questions and speculation continued. Over time, some stories grew around him. People imagined technologies lost, ideas buried, and systems that might have challenged corporate control. Some claims are difficult to verify, but the emotional truth behind them is clear. Kildall represents the inventor whose contribution was bigger than his reward. That is why his death still attracts attention. It is not only about how he died, it is about how easily a person can help build the future and still be pushed to the margins of its story. Technology often presents itself as progress, clean and inevitable. But behind every device are choices, rivalries, missed deals, and people whose names disappeared. Kildall's life reminds us that innovation is not always a straight line. Sometimes the future is shaped not only by the best idea, but by who controls the deal, the market, and the memory afterward. Michael Hastings knew how to make powerful people uncomfortable. As a journalist, he reported on war, military leadership, and government culture with a directness that stood out. His work helped end a general's career and showed that access journalism did not have to mean obedience. In June 2013, Hastings died in a violent car crash in Los Angeles. The crash was dramatic. His car struck a tree at high speed and burst into flames. Before his death, Hastings had reportedly told colleagues he was working on a sensitive story and believed he was under investigation. That was enough to create years of suspicion. Some asked whether the crash was simply the result of speed and bad luck. Others pointed to the possibility of vehicle hacking, surveillance, or retaliation. No public proof has established such claims, but the timing kept the questions alive. Hastings' death resonated because it happened in an era when people were beginning to understand how much technology could be controlled remotely. Phones, computers, cars, and cameras no longer felt fully private or fully mechanical. His work also mattered. He challenged institutions that prefer polished narratives. He showed that journalism can still wound power when it refuses to soften the truth. That made his death feel larger than one accident. For many, it became a warning about the fragility of a free press. A reporter does not need to be perfect to be necessary. He only needs to keep asking questions that powerful people would rather not hear. And Hastings did that until the road went silent. Karen Silkwood was driving toward a meeting when her story became permanent. She worked at a plutonium plant in Oklahoma and had raised concerns about safety practices, contamination, and worker exposure. Nuclear materials were not ordinary industrial hazards. They were invisible, long-lasting, and capable of harming people long after a shift ended. Silkwood believed the public was not being told enough. In November 1974, she left to meet a journalist and union representative. She was believed to be carrying documents related to safety violations. She never arrived. Her car crashed. She died. The documents were not found. That missing material became central to the mystery. Supporters believed she had been forced off the road or silenced before she could expose damaging evidence. Others argued the crash had a simpler explanation. But Silkwood's case endured because it was about more than one night. It revealed the imbalance between workers and corporations, between public safety and private profit, between dangerous materials and the people trusted to regulate them. Her story entered American memory because it made a hidden workplace visible. It showed that ordinary employees may be the first to see danger and the last to be protected when they speak. Silkwood was not a powerful executive. She was not a celebrity. She was a worker with concerns, documents, and a meeting she never reached. That is what makes the story so gripping. If the truth depends on one person safely reaching a destination, then the truth is already in danger. Dr. Jeff Bradstreet's story begins in one of the most emotional areas of medicine, autism. He was a physician known for controversial treatments and theories. Some families trusted him because they felt ignored by mainstream doctors. Critics argued that parts of his work were not supported by strong science. That divide made him a polarizing figure. In 2015, federal agents searched his clinic as part of an investigation involving medical products. Soon after, Bradstreet was found dead from a gunshot wound. Authorities described it as suicide. His supporters questioned that conclusion immediately. To them, the timing felt suspicious. A doctor under scrutiny, a controversial medical field, frightened families, and government action all combined into a story that seemed bigger than the official report. But the deeper issue is not only whether every suspicion is true. It is why families become so desperate for alternative answers in the first place. When parents feel dismissed, they search harder. When doctors speak coldly, another voice can sound like hope. When institutions appear arrogant, even risky claims can feel human. Bradstreet's death became part of a larger argument about medicine, trust, and vulnerability. The lesson is uncomfortable. Science needs evidence. But evidence alone does not build trust. People also need to feel heard. Where mainstream medicine fails to communicate with compassion, others will fill the gap. And sometimes those gaps become dangerous places where grief, hope, and suspicion all speak at once. By now, the pattern feels familiar. A person stands near a powerful system. They collect documents, prepare testimony, challenge an industry, or build a public platform. Then they die before the story is fully told. That pattern is why these cases hold attention. But patterns can mislead. Timing is not proof. Suspicion is not evidence. A missing file does not automatically reveal a conspiracy. Still, the suspicion exists for a reason. People know that institutions have lied before. Corporations have hidden risks. Governments have concealed programs. Agencies have protected themselves. Courts have moved slowly. Powerful people have escaped consequences. So when another unexplained death appears, many people are ready to believe the worst. The real danger is not just that people believe too much. It is that institutions have explained too little. Trust does not survive on official statements alone. It needs transparency, independent investigation, clear records, and accountability when mistakes happen. Without those things, silence becomes fuel. That is the thread connecting these stories. Not one proven master plan, not one secret organization behind every death, but a public trust so weakened that every strange ending becomes a possible cover-up. And that may be the most important revelation. The mystery is not only hidden in the deaths, it is hidden in the broken relationship between ordinary people and the systems that ask to be believed. There is a reason these stories keep spreading. They are not only about death. They are about fear. Fear that medicine is driven by profit. Fear that justice protects the connected. Fear that technology watches more than it serves. Fear that journalists can be pressured. Fear that workers who speak up can be left alone. Each person in this story became a symbol. The Shermans became a symbol of pharmaceutical power. Epstein became a symbol of elite protection. McAfee became a symbol of digital paranoia. Swartz became a symbol of open knowledge. Silkwood became a symbol of workplace courage. Hastings became a symbol of journalism under pressure. But symbols can flatten people. The real lives were more complicated. Some were admirable. Some were deeply flawed. Some made claims that remain disputed. Some were surrounded by facts that still do not fit neatly together. That complexity matters. A serious listener does not need to accept every theory, but a serious society cannot dismiss every question either. The answer is not blind belief. It is better investigation, better protection for whistleblowers, better access to records, better journalism, better oversight of industries whose decisions affect millions of lives. Because when the public cannot see how power works, it starts imagining what power hides. And imagination can become darker than the truth. The way forward is not to stop asking questions. It is to ask them carefully, follow evidence patiently, and remember that every mystery began with a human life that mattered before it became a headline. In the end, these deaths do not give us one simple conclusion. They give us a warning. A society cannot function on suspicion alone, but it also cannot demand trust while hiding too much. Every story here shows the same tension. A person challenged something larger than themselves. Then they died in a way that left people uneasy. Afterward came official statements, public doubt, missing context, and years of argument. Maybe some explanations are exactly what they appear to be. Maybe some are incomplete. Maybe some truths will never be recovered. But the larger lesson is already visible. People need systems they can question without fear. Workers need protection when they report danger. Journalists need room to investigate. Scientists need transparency. Families need answers that do not feel rushed, sealed, or convenient. When those needs are ignored, mystery grows. And once mystery becomes part of public memory, it is almost impossible to remove. The most haunting thing about these cases is not only that people died, it is that so much of what they carried seemed to vanish with them. Documents, testimony, research, names, warnings, unfinished work. That is why these stories continue to move from person to person. They remind us that truth is fragile when it depends on one witness, one hard drive, one folder, one meeting, one final drive through the dark. And they leave us with one question worth carrying forward. How do we build a world where telling the truth does not feel like a dangerous act?